Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by. I know we normally stream kind of just on Wednesdays, but my God, we have to talk about what just went down at the White House like 10 minutes ago, maybe less. Donald Trump gave an absolutely historic, legendary, epic, eonic, just truly one of the biggest meltdowns I have seen in my whole life. Now, he wasn't necessarily screaming and doing all those sorts of things, but my goodness, was it so clear that this is a man that knows he's lost. Absolutely. Absolutely. Daniel Dale, who works at CNN, and his job is fact-checking, not just Trump, but in effect, for the last few years, his job has been to fact-check every single thing the president says. Right? Like, that's his job, is to go around and say that, you know, the president said this, the president said that, here's what's false, here's what's true, here's what's misleading, here's what's, needs more context. And he said, right after that, here's what he said. I have read or watched all of Trump's speeches since 2016. This is the most dishonest speech he has ever given. He has ever given. We're going to do a breakdown about the election after. We're going to kind of do kind of a Trump reaction stream, but also we're going to talk a bit about the election as it stands. Maybe we'll get some info tonight. We'll have to wait and see. But that was a person who's been reading and watching and listening to everything Trump has done. Everything. And he says that was the most dishonest he's ever seen him. It's wild. It's wild, guys. Like, there were elements of truth in that, where he was like, we've elected more Republican women in Congress than ever. That's true. There were isolated niblets of truth. But when he's like, we only want the legal ballots to be counted. All the ballots are legal ballots. If there's any disputed ballots, they'll be put aside. Like, when he says, why are all these mail-in ballots going against me? Why are all the mail-in ballots going against me? Why is it that whenever they get a new batch of mail-in ballots, they go against me? Well, it's like, of course they do, Donald. You basically told your supporters not to vote by mail. You told them that COVID wasn't real. You told them that it was BS. And now all of a sudden, you're coming in and the Democrats, conversely, rightfully so, said, this is real and you should protect yourself. And we want you to vote by mail if you feel like you need to and if you feel like that makes you safer. And so most of the mail-in votes, not all of them, but most of them were Democratic. So it makes sense that, say, in a city like Atlanta, which already leans Democratic, that most of the mail-in ballots in blue parts of states would be Democrats. It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. 100%. It makes perfect sense. Look, there was other really good things. Jim Acosta from CNN basically said, like right before the speech, he was in the, he was one of the journalists in the room, where he basically said, like, the quote, the president is watching the lights go out on his presidency right now. This is what we're witnessing in real time. Chris Hayes from MSNBC was like, you can smell the stench of political death wafting off the podium. Like, this is a man who knows he's lost. Maybe he's not ready to fully say it to himself 100%. But this is a man that knows he's sort of done for. Right? Like, that's where we're at. This is a man who knows he's done. And that's what this speech was. Utter desperation. Utter desperation. And we know that because you can see the dominoes start to fall. You can see the right-wingers fight amongst themselves. You can see Trump beg Fox News to rescind their Arizona call, and they basically hung up on him. You see it where Trump's Secretary of Defense has already penned a resignation letter. You see it in the fact that behind the scenes at the White House, people close to Trump are already talking about Trump 2024. And whether they're serious about that or whether it's like a face-saving thing, it allows Trump to like concede, but without actually giving up. He can say, I'm not giving up. I'm just going to live to fight another day, and I'm running again in 2024. Like, get ready for Trump. Get ready to make America great again, again, MAGA. And like, I don't know. But clearly, he's starting to see that he's losing. And most of his court challenges, most of them, not all of them, have been shot down quickly by judges, often without a lot of consideration because they're BS claims. They're absolutely BS claims. Absolutely. And that's where we're at. We got a guy who's trying to cling on to power here, and it's just not happening. It's just not happening. Look, like it's just not happening. Anderson Cooper just said, this is the president of the United States. This is the most powerful person in the world. And we see him like a turtle on his back flailing in the hot sun. It's universal condemnation. I'm not seeing much here that's defending him. Like Rick Santorum. So Rick Santorum, who is CNN's, like the Republican on CNN's panel, their election panel, which is now on day 3, because we're all going crazy here waiting for the results. On CNN's panel, it says here, Rick Santorum is saying no president of the United States should say what the Donald Trump just did, calls it quote unquote dangerous, says no elected Republicans will support Trump. I hope Republicans will stand up and say what needs to be said. He says it's not fraud to count the ballots that are currently in the counting stations in places like Pennsylvania. And so what you're seeing is not necessarily principle from Republicans. Got some Trumpers here. Welcome, guys. Copium's in the corner. Go grab a bunch. Got it on air and in liquid. However you need your copium. We got all the copium you could ever use. But welcome. Look, Republicans are starting to abandon this guy. Both because some of them are like, this is a danger to democracy. This is too far for even us. But I think the real deal, and we're going to talk about this, is the Republicans feel they have a real shot to get rid of Donald Trump, who is erratic and crazy, and still keep the Senate. And they made small gains in the House, not enough to flip it, but they're going to keep the Senate and we'll talk about how they might not because there's those 2 runoffs, but it's looking good for them to keep the Senate. The odds are in their favor. But now they that's creating a scenario where they don't need Donald Trump to stop the Democrats. If it was a scenario where they looked like they were losing the Senate, maybe the Republicans would be throwing caution to the wind because they would fear the Democratic trifecta. Now Mitch McConnell's like, look, we could just get rid of Trump, stop Joe Biden from doing anything for 4 years, and then elect someone better in 2024 and blame Joe Biden for the obstruction. It's what we did to the Democrats last time, and they flipped on it. Right? And the people didn't punish people didn't punish them. My God, 1,000 people here. This is already like my biggest stream. For new people here, click the subscribe button if you want progressive, hard-hitting analysis, daily politics. But yeah, right now we're ripping Trump, right? We're ripping Trump right now, and he deserves to be ripped. Like, just universal condemnation, guys. I'm trying to see, I'm sure that, Mark Levin or whatever is like, oh, this is great. You have some Republicans I've seen on Twitter say that Republican state officials should just not certify votes for Biden and for the Democrats, and just totally disregard the will of the people. One of my, not even a journalist, just one of my friends on Twitter basically being like, does Trump even have a single person in his life who is willing to step up and tell him that this is a bad idea? Like, where are the people that supposedly love this man? Where are the people that love this man? Like, my God. So Samantha Sider with the super chat, and thank you so much for that, Samantha, saying that the Democrats need to pick up those 2 Senate seats in Georgia. You're 100% right. You're 100% right that's a key fight. Like, right now, the reason why, like, Trump is doing this is because the strategy failed. The strategy actually failed. Right? The strategy was hopefully for the Republicans to get this down to 1 state, like Pennsylvania, and then go hard all in on blocking the late counting ballots. We like, for my longer term viewers, we've been talking about this for weeks, but for those who maybe saw Bernie on Jimmy Kimmel and Bernie with Rachel Maddow, Bernie Sanders has been saying this for at least a couple months. You know, the mail-in votes are mostly Democratic, and so you can try to block the mail-in votes from being counted or getting there or whatever, and then steal the election. Right? Like, that's what's happening. And so that was Trump's attempt. But then he didn't bank on the fact that he's also losing in Arizona, he's losing in Nevada, and there's a good chance that within the next few hours, if not maybe by tomorrow morning, that he'll be losing, or it'll be absolutely razor thin in Georgia. Right? So now you got this situation where Trump supporters are like, you know, count the votes in Arizona, and they're chanting, count the votes, count the votes, count the votes in Arizona. But in Michigan and in Pennsylvania and in Georgia, where Michigan, Trump has fallen behind Biden, but in all the states where Biden was catching up to Trump or has caught up to him, that's where the ballots need to stop being counted. We got people saying Trump derangement syndrome, but like, look, the only people with derangement are Trump and his supporters, that they think that they're stealing this election. Why would the Democrats steal this election? Why would they steal it? And then and only steal the presidency? If they could steal this, why wouldn't they be stealing other ridings and districts and Senate seats? Why wouldn't they? Especially in some of the states. Like, why wouldn't they have just stolen Jon Ossoff's seat in Georgia? Why wouldn't they have just stolen Cunningham's seat in North Carolina? Why wouldn't they have just stolen the seat in Maine? These are all states that Biden has won or are very close, and yet the Senate seats are slightly better for Trump. The logical answer, guys, is not that this is stolen. The logical answer is not that this is stolen, but that there are at least some people that voted Republican, but that could no longer tolerate Donald Trump for whatever reason. That in states like Georgia and Maine and North Carolina and in some other ones, they voted for their local congressperson who is a Republican or their senator, but they did not vote Trump for president. Unlike in 2016, people didn't match the ballots. This time, a lot of Republicans separated themselves. And that's what happened. Like that's the thing. Like, if they were cheating, they wouldn't have cheated to such a BS result that doesn't get anything done. Like, Trump killed 250,000 people, guys, with COVID. And they still just barely beat him. Like, look, I'm critical of the Democratic response. They ran their campaign was far too timid, far too weak, and the result was this. Yeah, they beat one of the worst presidents in modern American history, maybe the worst in modern American history. And they lost 6 seats or so in the House, maybe more, maybe a couple less, who knows. And they didn't win. They flipped 2 seats in the Senate, but then flipped one back to the Republicans. Like, this is not the sort of election that that has evidence of fraud. There's none. There's none. And where these counts are happening, there are observers from multiple parties. In these states, the way it works is that all the counts, every counting is at least in a pair. And the people in the pair have to be from different parties. So it's not like you get 2 Trump supporters or 2 Biden supporters counting the same ballots. It doesn't happen. Like that's it's absurd, guys. And the comments right now, there's a good chunk of people just aren't listening to the reality that's before them. Donald Trump is going to lose this election. As Jim Acosta said, you could hear it when he was exiting the press conference. Mr. President, are you being a sore loser? And the only logical conclusion is that yes, he is. He is being a sore loser. So I saw right there that Darren Morgan became a member of the channel. Darren, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate that. That really does help sustain and grow the channel. So thank you so much. I'm just trying to kind of what else from that speech is very clear. I mean, one thing I noticed, a lot of people noticed it, which he never did, was Trump called Joe Mr. Biden. Trump's almost never called Biden Mr. Biden. He's called him Joe. He's called him Biden. He often calls him Sleepy Joe Biden or Sleepy Joe. But he called him Mr. Biden. Is that a little bit of reality slipping in that, this is the next president and you call the president Mr.? I don't know. Maybe people are reading too much into that. Yeah. Even here, this is the New York Post. The New York Post headline 15 minutes ago. Again, the New York Post was one of the only outlets that would publish the Hunter Biden story. A lot of outlets wouldn't publish it because it frankly didn't meet the standards for publishing, which is why a lot of journalists didn't want to put their name on it. And even the New York Post said 15 minutes ago, downcast Trump makes baseless election fraud claims in White House address. That's the New York Post, guys. That is the New York Post 15 or so minutes ago saying he made baseless claims. Again, there is no basis to his claims. None. There is none. There is no significant amount of voter fraud in the United States. There's none. It's not real. And to the extent that voter fraud is real, guys, it's done by the right. Voter suppression and voter fraud are overwhelmingly done by the right to disenfranchise people of color in particular. Conservatives, Republicans, they are the vote fraudsters and vote suppressors. Look, Jacob Wall, that fucking ghoul, got charged, got arrested basically for putting out fake robocalls in Detroit saying to places that had overwhelmingly black populations, don't go and vote or the cops will get you. They're going to make you pay all your fines or what have you to scare people away from voting. And they got arrested for that. That's voter fraud. That's voter suppression. Telling people to vote in the wrong places. Voter fraud and voter suppression is pretending like it's a country where everyone can vote, and then you're a Republican and you close thousands of DMVs and polling stations all across the country to make it harder for people of color and poor people and working class people to vote. And preventing people who have served their time or people in prison from voting. That's voter fraud and voter suppression. And it's done overwhelmingly by Trump supporters. So fuck off. Take your copium. Yeah, I'm heated right now, guys. I'm heated right now. 100% heated. People saying, oh, dead people voted. Well, in some states, actually, they have a provision for that. Right? Like, if in some states, if somebody does pass away, their ballot doesn't count if it's an advanced ballot. In other states, it does. Individual states have individual rules about that. But there's no systematic thing where it's like thousands of people are voting dead. It's not a thing. Samantha literally had to time out Adolf Hitler. You know, what if their name really is Adolf Hitler? Like, what if, like, their parents were like, we just like the sound of it? Like, guys, we gotta be real here. Everyone is like, I'm gonna go, like, let me check Fox News. I want to see what Fox News, what their account maybe tweeted about this. They don't have anything as of yet. They just said that they have the, click here to watch the press conference. So the main Fox News account has not tweeted in like an hour. Maybe that says a lot. It's an account that tweets fairly frequently. Brett Baer on Fox News says we have not seen hard evidence of any election fraud. Look, that's not as strong as it needs to be, if I'm being honest. You need to see something stronger than that. Right? You need to see something stronger than that, frankly, from Fox News. But that is, again, a sign that I think Fox News knows that there's no value in continuing to hitch yourself to the Trump train right now. Trump was only valuable to the conservative movement insofar as he won the election, which he was unexpected to do, and he gave them their judges. Now that it looks like he's going to lose, and they're not going to lose the Senate, we'll talk about that. The fact of the matter is, I think at least some people at Fox, not everyone, they want to cut loose from Trump. They want to cut loose. And I think, like, the more journalistic a person is at Fox, the more likely they're maybe to say, look, it's just not worth it anymore. It's not worth this embarrassing fight anymore to keep grappling with Trump. And, like, I don't know if I disagree with them. Then again, you have people like Lou Dobbs. Lou Dobbs at Fox News is, like, mad people aren't fighting for him enough. Right? Like, Lou Dobbs is furious. I did a video after this stream. Here, after this stream, go check it out. I'll drop a link in the description so you don't miss it, or a link in the comments. But this video, like, Lou Dobbs here, basically freaking out because he's like, you gotta start suing people more. You gotta start suing people more so we can, get this done, because we're losing this election, guys. We gotta do more here. Right? Chat is going crazy right now. Like, honestly, like, that's where we're at. That's where we're at. So, Like Biden's team put out a statement. One of Biden's campaign team staff, and it was honestly, and again, for people who know my content, I'm as I'm on the left, I'm critical as well of Joe Biden. But the reality is, like, they were like, if you want a sign that this MFer is losing, that Trump is losing this election, it's his behavior. People who are winning don't behave like this. Like, they don't. People who are winning don't behave like this. Like, this is not how a winner... Joe Biden is behaving like a winner. Right? Joe Biden has come out. He's given, like, one speech a day for a few minutes, basically saying, like, we're confident with the results. We respect that every vote should be counted. Democracy sometimes requires patience. And we have, and that's it. That's basically it. And that's all that you need to be saying right now. That's all Trump should be saying. Trump could come out and say, look, we're optimistic. We're exploring all of our options. Trump, like you have a legal right to explore recounts and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing bad about, say, asking for a recount in a really close state. Nothing wrong with it. But Trump has gone well beyond that pale. Remember that the Trumpers made an absolute, like, huge deal over the fact that Hillary Clinton didn't immediately give a concession speech in 2016 because she waited till the following morning. We remember that. She didn't say anything that night. But Hillary Clinton got up the next morning, and after a terrible campaign she ran, because she ran an awful campaign, we've talked about it on this channel, Bernie would have won, but she got up and she gave her speech. She gave her speech. And she conceded. And she acknowledged that Donald Trump will be the next president. And I have no faith that if, say, tonight at like 2 a.m., like a similar amount of time, like late tonight for some reason, we get the final results that Biden has defeated Trump, and multiple networks, maybe including some right-of-center ones like Fox News, have called it for Biden, that Trump will come out and concede. Because again, guys, you can't make the argument that there's any legitimate way to overturn this. If the current numbers are correct, Biden will win Arizona and Nevada, and then it's done. Then, like, the other states don't actually matter if he wins those two. That's 270 right there. It's over. Trump can only get to 268, and it's over. And then you add in the situation where, then you get to the potential of adding Pennsylvania and North Carolina and Georgia. North Carolina, not very likely. There's not very many outstanding votes there. So I'm skeptical of North Carolina. But how is he going to... How is he going to actually get it done? Like... I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. So I do want to take a look at the. Let me pull this up here. We're gonna pull up the election map because I do want to get a sense for what's happening. We'll see if we get any updates. So I'm gonna pull this. Let me set up my my OBS here to capture this screen. Okay, good. Okay, good. Now, basically, let me bring this. Okay. So basically, as you can see right here, we're currently at 2. This is the New York Times. So to be fair to Trump, not all networks have called the result for Biden. Not all the results have been called for Biden. Right? Arizona has not been called by everyone. So if we look here, we can get a sense for what's happening. Right now, Biden is at 253 here. If you go with Arizona, which most sources are giving to Joe Biden, that puts him at 264. Then, if you add the 6 votes in Nevada, it's over. That's 270. Pennsylvania, right now, Pennsylvania is within 1%. It's within 1%. And if you look at the actual state, when you zoom in, you get to see that you can see that there's still, where there is outstanding votes, it's overwhelmingly in blue areas. This is why the state can flip. Look at this. Like, Trump has there's a lot of the state where Trump is winning, but 98%. Erie only 94 votes to come in there, and it leans Biden. Pittsburgh, 94, leans Biden. Center County, leans Biden. Lackawanna, where Scranton is, that one's done, but it leans Biden. Look here, Philly, though. Look at the core Philly areas. 85 here in Delaware County, and only 89% in Philadelphia County proper. 84 in Allentown, 92 in Bucks. And so where the vote largely isn't done yet in Pennsylvania, all of these red counties, I don't know if every single one, but just scanning over it, most of them are done. Some of them aren't quite yet, like this one's got 78, and it is leaning Trump. But like, Biden's in a good position, guys. Biden's in a good position. Trumpers starting to clear out. I was like, oh God, he's getting into the facts. He's actually covering the facts now. We're allergic to that. So maybe a lot of the Trumpers are gone. And so that's where we're at right now in this state. Now, similarly, if we go to Georgia, we see a similar result. Now, Georgia right now is even closer, but Georgia has less vote to count. But if you do look at some of the places where there are votes outstanding, it is largely in the Atlanta area. So if you look, one of the few counties that doesn't have 95, this 98 or greater percent, is this DeKalb County, this Clayton County, where where this county has voted 85% for Biden, and there's still 5% of the vote left, right? Now, with this greater than 98, what they mean is it could be done, but it could also be that they still have a last few outstanding ballots. They never say 100% done, because you never want to say 100, because that literally means every ballot is done. So basically, this is mostly done counted. So Biden has a decent chance, when you factor in every single last ballot, to flip Georgia as well. Like, that's kind of what we're looking at right there. What are people saying? Somebody says, we lost 400 viewers in 5 minutes. Well, it's probably because I stopped ripping Trump, and the MAGA people were very much only here to maybe try to counter that. But when we actually started about the hard economic and hard data realities of how Trump is likely to lose, I think they ran out of copium and had to head out. So, North Carolina, this is why North Carolina is not as likely to flip. One, It's almost 1.5% difference. 95% of the vote is in. Now, it hasn't been called yet, but if you look, the blue areas, they're not done, all of them, but they're also not in like the 80s anymore. So like Raleigh's only got 5% left, and a lot of these suburbs only have like 5% left. There are some exceptions here. This Orange County, North Carolina, has 82% left, and it is 75% Biden. So North Carolina is far less likely, but it is still possible, which is why it hasn't been taken off the map. Again, I stress this. If you operate under the assumption that Biden has won Arizona, which some sources have, then he only needs to win one of the other 4 states, and it does not matter which one, because he needs 6 more votes, and they're all at least worth 6. Nevada's worth 6, PA 20, North Carolina 15, Georgia 16. Like, that's where we're at. That's where we're at right now. One thing to also look at PA is that, and Dave Wasserman is doing this on Twitter. Give Dave, he's a data analyst guy. What he's been saying is that, in Philadelphia, in those parts of the country at least, and in a lot of the counties, as the votes come in and sort of get completed, the fact of the matter is that Biden is either winning counties that Hillary lost, or he's losing them by less than Hillary did. Like, that matters, right? Like, in deep red Pennsylvania, you don't need to win them. You just need to lose them by less. That's what it is. Now, apparently, this is from The Hill. They tweeted this out 30 some seconds ago. Apparently, Joe Biden just expanded his lead in Clark County. So Biden has expanded his lead in Nevada. Let's go take a look. Maybe we'll see if this has been updated. Okay, Nevada as a whole, if you can look, the lead, the lead was more like 11 some thousand. So what you're seeing is the mail-in vote in Nevada is not as skewed towards Biden as it is in some other states, but it is still indeed very much pro Biden. And so it does look good for Biden to win this state. Now, of course, you look at the map, but remember, like, well over half the state lives in Vegas County. The only other major population center really is maybe like Reno, Carson City over here, like this area, which explains why it's something of an urban area. So that's why it is more 50-50, but it does lean Biden. And so that's where we're at right now with the presidency. Biden is increasing his lead in Nevada. There's not necessarily a sense that he is going to catch up in that state. And if Arizona is the same, it puts Trump in a really tricky position. So a couple things here that people have noted here at the New York Times, just on the updates on this page, as you guys might see there. You might not be able to read it, but I'll read it out to you, and just give me 1 second. I just want to keep a tabs on you guys in the chat here. Make sure I'm not missing anything. So basically, if you look right here, Biden is. It says right here. From Michael Groundbaum at the New York Times says the 3 major networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC, all cut away from Trump's address when he made false claims at the White House. Now, I was watching it just on like social media, so I didn't see that. But apparently, the 3 main networks all cut away. I don't know at what point in particular, maybe when he started calling that, some of the mail-in ballots fake ballots, but that is good to see. That the news, yes, he's the president, and what he says matters, and there should always be an urge to resist not covering him, but there does come a point where even the president does not deserve coverage if he's only going to use it to spread lies. It notes here, this was 52 minutes ago, Erie County, PA, a bellwether county that voted for Trump in 2016, just flipped to Biden. Trump's lead in Pennsylvania is now less than 74,000. As we saw when we looked at the Pennsylvania numbers, Erie is, of course, the county here that is on the Great Lakes. And Erie is just barely Biden. But again, it is one of those areas that sometimes is indicative of a national trend because it's not too urban, not too rural, not too liberal, not too conservative. And it is the kind of thing that might give you a bit of a tail here. It says here, this was 46 minutes ago. More votes have been reported in Chatham and Clayton counties, narrowing Trump's Georgia lead to less than 4,000, which is what we saw there. In his first remarks to reporters in 2 days, Trump delivered a brief statement filled with egregious falsehoods and smears about the election process. Adam Nagurny says Trump's remarks had a farewell tone to them as he listed all the obstacles that he is blaming for any loss. The downbeat contrast from his election night tone was startling. So remember, Trump came out on election night when it looked at least okay for him, when a lot of people were saying, we're still not saying that Trump's the favorite, but Biden winning a landslide is over and it might be 50-50. Now it was low energy dawn. It was low energy dawn. People are asking who's winning. Clearly, no one's won yet. No networks, no major sources have called this election for anyone. But Joe Biden is clearly the favorite right now. Clearly. Again, just to outline this again, if you look here, Biden, again, some networks have given him Arizona. Under that assumption, and that includes Fox News, under the assumption that he has Arizona, he only needs one of the 4 other states. Meaning that if Trump does not win Arizona, he needs to win Nevada, where he's currently losing, PA, where the momentum is against him, North Carolina, where I think he probably is the favorite, and Georgia, where again, it's getting really, really tight, but the momentum is against him. And so I would say undeniably right now, Joe Biden is the clear favorite. And a lot of people are already suggesting that he's basically won. Everyone's being really careful because this is a weird election and the prediction models might not be as accurate because you're dealing with mail-in voting versus in-person voting versus early in-person voting. And it's not always clear exactly where the ballots came from in terms of how they were cast. And if you don't have that info, you don't necessarily have a sense for how those people are going to vote. And Jim Ruttenberg here says, this was less than 20 minutes ago, says, a federal judge denied the Trump campaign's request to stop vote counting in Philadelphia, but ordered officials to expand the number of people each side could have in the room. So that's a bit of a compromise to Trump. But again, the idea that they were hiding the count is ridiculous. Like the idea that the Trump campaign was benefiting from this hidden count is ridiculous. Or that the Biden campaign, was benefiting from a hidden count. It's absurd. Absolutely absurd. Totally and unequivocally absurd. There's no other word for it. There's no other word for it. What you saw there was them trying to suggest that under the darkness of night, Democrats were without Republican oversight, basically rigging the election, accusing people, volunteers and workers making minimum wage, working all through the night to help democracy happen, accusing them of rigging the election for Joe Biden. He's not, at that point, he's not just accusing Biden or Biden's, like Hunter Biden or Nancy Pelosi or Tom Perez at the DNC. He's accusing working class Americans of tearing down their own democracy. That's shameful. That's absolutely shameful. Yeah, we got a lot of hate watchers tonight. Yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of hate watchers tonight. We had more earlier. But, like, that's, like, guys, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Let me, yeah, this was, Lester Holt. If you look, basically, let me see. I can play the audio for you. If I put it on the screen, it might get copyright. Like,
the Democrats mail-in ballots are so one-sided too. I know that it's supposed to.
See if I can get the audio. You might be able to hear this.
To be to the advantage of the Democrats, but in all cases they're so one-sided.
We're watching President Trump speaking live from the White House, and we have to interrupt here because the president has made a number of false statements, including the notion that there has been fraudulent voting. There has been no evidence of that. Allegations by his campaign, but his campaign spokespeople unable to provide any evidence. He also has suggested that the polls, and many of which were incorrect, were somehow the product of election interference. Chuck Todd, Andrew Mitchell.
So, if you guys heard that, that was Trump basically lying at the press conference, and Lester Holt, one of the anchors at one of the big networks, as soon as they heard that, they were basically like, we basically at that point, they were like, we have to cut away. He's lying. He's lying about the votes being fake. He's lying about pollsters somehow creating a conspiracy to depress Republican turnout. And it doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make sense. Because, if anything, wouldn't showing a big Democrat lead make Democrats complacent? Like, if you're a conspiracy theorist, wouldn't showing Biden up 10 make Democrats, like, feel like this is over and we don't have to worry about it? Like, wouldn't that help the Republicans? Like, so if the polls were rigged, and they're not. Pollsters make mistakes, but they're not rigged. But if the polls were rigged, wouldn't it make sense to rig them to make the Republicans look strong so that Trump voters got complacent? Like, wouldn't that be the way to screw Trump through polling? It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me, guys. And so, like, I don't know. Doesn't make sense. What else are people saying right now? We're going to go for a few more minutes because I don't think we're going to get a lot tonight. But I do want to break down the Senate and the House a little bit. And then we'll kind of wrap up because I just kind of did this as something of a impromptu stream. So let me go back to this, the map here. So as you can see, the presidency looks to be in really good shape for Biden. Now here's the House. The House is gonna stay Democrat, but the Republicans are +6. Now this was a bit of a surprise because going by the polls as we saw them, there was a projection that the Democrats might gain 5, maybe even 10 seats. Nothing major, but that they weren't expected to lose. But you can see they lost a seat in Iowa, they lost one in Minnesota, they lost one in Michigan, they lost one in New Mexico, they lost one in Oklahoma, they also lost one in southern Florida, and they've lost others as well. And so you can clearly see that the Democrats have given back some in the House. Now, They're going to hold on. It was called very early. The Democrats are already at 209 confirmed. You only need to get to 218 for control. So they only need 9 more out of the 34. And there's still a lot of them still in California. A lot of them in Nevada that haven't been called that should be okay for them. So it's likely the case that they're going to hold on and still with a bit of a buffer. But that's a bit of an issue. And that's going to be a debate about why that happened. I think one of the key reasons was that the Democrats didn't make a clear enough connection between their policies and how it helps regular people in their day-to-day lives. Like, that's one of the reasons. Right? So basically in Florida, the Republicans picked up House seats. Trump, I think, maybe even did better than he did in 2016 in Florida. And while that happened, over 60% of people in Florida voted for a $15 minimum wage. So why would they vote for a $15 minimum wage, something Trump does not support, but something Biden does, and then not vote for Biden and then not vote for local Democrats? And the reason is because Biden barely talked about a lot of those core economic policies. He didn't spend enough time talking about his minimum wage plan. He didn't spend enough time talking about those core economic issues. And that's not, I'm not trying to say that, he should have talked less about gender and race. No, but he should have found some space to actually talk about those issues that speak to the entire working class, whether male or female, or whether white or non-white. The majority of people in the country of all backgrounds are working class. In every ethnic group, the majority of that ethnic group is working class. And I think that was a big mistake. And so you could say, there was the fear of socialism in Florida, and maybe that played a role with the Cuban Americans. But at the end of the day, a state that voted for a $15 minimum wage but didn't vote for the Democrat, that's a sign the Democrats didn't make the connection. You know? They didn't get it. And so that's an issue. Democrats need to realize that. Some moderate Democrats are like Jim Clyburn are already starting to suggest that, it was the left's fault because people don't want Medicare for all or defund the police or things like that. But you didn't run on that. They didn't run on that. The Democrats ran against defund the police and they ran against Medicare for all. Joe Biden said it. I beat the socialist. And Joe Biden also said, I want to give more money to the police. I want to give more money to the police and Trump less. And indeed, Joe Biden even said, look, in the primary, the key debate was Medicare for all versus my plan. And I won the primary. Now, my argument is that people actually still wanted Medicare for all in the Democratic Party, but they picked Biden out of fear that, or out of hope that he would be the most electable. But the point is that Biden was very clearly running against Medicare for all. And it didn't matter. So I think that, this idea that the being too left-wing hurt the Democrats is the wrong argument. Now, if we hop to the Senate, let's hop to the Senate here. So here in the Senate, what you can see is that, just to clarify, like with the other map, if you look here, states that are white did not have a Senate election this cycle. States that are blue filled in are states where a Democrat was an incumbent and won. States that are red are where a Republican was an incumbent and won. If it's checkmarked, it means that it was a gain from the other party. So the Republicans gained 1 seat as Doug Jones lost. Remember, Doug Jones became the senator after the Republicans literally nominated a literal pedophile to run against him, and he beat him. But this time they nominated a more traditional Republican, and Doug Jones wasn't able to win that race. And then the Democrats won a seat in both Arizona and Colorado to flip there. They need to win, though, 2 more. For the Democrats to control the Senate, they need to win 2 more. They need to win 2 more. Now, here are the options. Alaska's not really an option, I don't think. They haven't called it yet, but it's not looking great. I know not all the votes in there, but as you can see, there's a pretty big gap. So unless there's a huge mail-in discrepancy in Alaska, which I don't think will be as pronounced as it is in other parts of the country, it looks good for the Republican to hold on there. If you look, the Democrats need to basically win either one of the Georgia seats in North Carolina or both Georgia seats. North Carolina looks unlikely because he's down by almost 2%, and there's not a whole lot of votes to be counted. He would need to win about 80% of the remaining vote to win. And while the mail-in votes would benefit the Democrats, it's likely not going to benefit them quite that much. And so North Carolina's Senate seat will likely stay red. It hasn't been called yet, but it's likely. So you go to Georgia, and Georgia is crucial because Georgia is going to have 2 runoff elections. They're going to have 2 runoff elections. The first runoff election is going to be between Jon Ossoff and David Perdue. David Perdue just missed his 50% threshold, so it's likely the case that they're going to have a runoff there. Unless there's a sudden spike in the Republican vote in Georgia, which again looks unlikely, given that the mail-in ballots are leaning Democrat, his lead will only shrink. There's going to be a runoff in January. And in the other primary, it was multiple Republicans and Democrats ran, and the final is between Mark Warnock and Kelly Loeffler. And that will be between a Democrat and a Republican in that race as well. So there will be 2 Georgia Senate elections in early January. If the Democrats can win both of those, throw aside the North Carolina one, the Senate will be 50-50. But that's a win for the Democrats because if they win the White House, which looks pretty likely right now, Kamala Harris becomes the tie vote. So 50-50, the tiebreaker goes to the party that controls the White House. So that's what needs to happen. And it's big because everything from appointing your cabinet to new judges to getting any kind of significant legislation done requires you be able to pass legislation through the Senate. And while maybe there'll be some things that Biden can get support from moderate Republicans, maybe like Mitt Romney or Murkowski or or Susan Collins, for the most part, Republicans will obstruct his legislative program. So beyond, and we talked about this last night, but beyond executive orders and things like that, there's really not much that Trump can, that Biden can do without the Senate. And so that's why a lot of people in this, in the chat were like, we need to look at the Senate. And that's exactly right. The Senate is vital, and it already kind of is because it's a lot more up in the air than the presidency. But I mean, the second the presidency is called, like that runoff election is crucial, because if the Democrats can win both, they take control of the Senate for at least 2 years, and that means the Democrats would have control of all 3 branches, which means they could hypothetically pass healthcare reform, minimum wage increase. And maybe even look at some of the things like, expanding the court, and also making DC a state, things like that. That's unlikely with such a narrow majority, but it's possible. It's impossible right now. So I see a super chat here from Karen Sita saying, OMG, special live episode on a Thursday. Don't forget to like, folks. Thank you so much, Karen. I really appreciate that. And thank you for your support. Always happy to do this. We had to hop on after that comment from from Trump, because it was absolutely insane. It was absolutely insane, guys. Yeah. So it was crazy. So, guys, it doesn't look like we're going to get a ton of new info tonight, or at least not right now. So I don't want to just kind of spin our wheels. I am going to probably call this stream, because I want to bring you guys info. I'll be back either with a video or with something at some point tonight if we do get something definitive. But for now, I'm going to wrap. For those that are new, because we did get some new people here that probably weren't Trump trolls, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel. If you do, that will bring you my content every day. I put out at least one video a day, often more than that. I encourage you to follow me on Twitter, where you can get some of my up-to-date commentary on things that I don't necessarily make videos on. And if you want to support the channel, you can support the channel via Patreon, becoming a member, or donating to PayPal. But again, one of the biggest things you can do is, join the channel up and watch the content. That always helps to support the channel. So guys, thank you so much. Have a good one. We'll keep you up to date. Stay strong. And at the very least, I'll have another stream next Wednesday, if not before then.